C-Red Nation, what is good? Good morning, Chicago. It's your boy, Pat, the designer, back at it again. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and rocking with us for another episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Listen, we got a lot to talk about on today's episode, man. Wanted to hop on here in the AM because I know by the middle of the day and end of the day, Mud's going to be drinking and partying and living it up. Shout out to you. I'm still dying on this cleanse, y'all. I'm in day 4 of the actual cleanse. I'm in day 7 of like pre-cleanse, all of that, basically not eating high 8. I'm down 16 pounds. I'm doing good, but I'm dying low key. Appreciate y'all tuning in, showing love. Hey, we got to talk Bulls though. Bulls and Kings have talked a DeMar DeRozan sign and trade. Got to get into that. The Bulls also having some interest in Kevin Huerter has been reported, which is very, very interesting because of the Kings and the Bulls talking trade here. Could a sign and trade be coming? Got to break that down. The Spurs could also be involved in that as well. And my boy, Adama Sanago, agrees to another two-way contract with the Chicago Bulls. All that more in today's episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave that 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. We got a bunch of people in here already, man. Levante in the building. Jay Garf in the cut. Over on the Twitter side, man. Shay in the building. Jay Garf also on the YouTube side. He doubled up on this mug. Jacob Don in the building. Nova in the building. Appreciate y'all tuning in, showing love already. Y'all here for the morning news. Oh, the honey in the chat. Let's start this thing off, man, because we got this kind of late last night, I guess. This came out about 10 o'clock last night from Barry Jackson. He said, of Flat Sports Buzz, he said, Kings have talked to the Bulls about DeMar DeRozan sign and trade per sources. Spurs also now another possibility, despite DeRozan's interest in the Miami Heat, not in a position, the Miami Heat are not in a position to give him what he's seeking at this time. Heat will hope opportunity on some player it wants arises this summer. He also quote tweets that and says, horrible grammar from this dude, bro. Like, take that for what you will. Said Heat is trying to do something in trade market. I've been assured. DeRozan seems difficult at the moment. Other options less clear. That's why they have left themselves $7 million under the second apron for now. So it's not like they're sitting around playing Scrabble. I mean, they kind of are though, right? Like Pat Riley's asleep right now. Yeah, I mean, Pat Riley's knocked out. Like he said, hey, listen, looking at the Heat, Ringo's dying right now looking at Heat free agency. Yeah, I mean, like it's funny to talk about when you're on this mug. But no, I think here's the thing, right? When you start off with that news and you hear that the Bulls have talked to the Sacramento Kings about a possible sign and trade. You follow that up with the news that we got from Casey Johnson about how the Bulls are fans of Kevin Huerter per sources, and it's something to monitor. I mean, listen, it does kind of speak to the Bulls and the Kings possibly trying to work something out when you're talking about if you could bring something back. And this is why I said, right, it's almost like the Bulls were shooting themselves in the foot trying to keep DeMar DeRozan around. But now the fact that they couldn't and the money situation lining up for the Bulls right now, there's almost this spot that the Bulls are in where it's only a win situation for them. DeMar DeRozan wants more than $13 million a year. For the Bulls to make some kind of trade like that happen in a sign and trade, you would have to be talking about a 3-team trade that could involve the Spurs. I don't know if that would or not, but you'd have to be talking about multiple teams getting involved in this. But if the Bulls were to get back Kevin Huerter from that, and I'm not saying that this is apples for apples. I'm not saying that this is right. DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Huerter, same guy. Never would even in a million years imagine that. But what you can say about it is the Chicago Bulls are getting back an asset that they wouldn't have been getting if this situation didn't play out this way, because right, like DeMar DeRozan was set to just walk away and the Bulls get nothing from it. Now you're talking about a possibility of, if DeMar DeRozan doesn't want to take a 1-year deal, if he still wants to go to a winning situation. Sacramento is a winning situation. They didn't make waves in the playoffs last year at all, right? Because it just Sacramento just kind of fell off at the end. I ain't gonna lie, they got to play some defense. But offensively, those mugs just basically are a team that can go out there and say, hey, let's go after it, let's score. And if you bring DeMar DeRozan either in your starting lineup or off of your bench, one or the other, you know he's going to be able to do that. You got the shooters over there to make some things work. I think for me, this would be an interesting get back for the Bulls, though, because you're bringing in a guy who at his best, when he was called upon in Sacramento to start most of that season, he was a 15-point per game guy. Now, I don't know if he comes here and he's a starter for you. I think he'd probably still end up being off the bench, giving you about 24 minutes a game. But in that time, he's been able to put up 10 points per game, 36% from the three-point line. He's a guy who, guess what? He wants to shoot the three ball. You kick it to him in the corner, that thing's going up. 5 3-pointers per game last season, knocked down just about 2 of them per game. That's a good percentage for you if you're moving forward. If you're talking about somebody who can, this is what I'm asking you to do. I want to see you be able to knock that down. When he was starting, if he does get more minutes right, and his starting role, like he started 29 games in Sacramento, but they had so many pieces rotating in and out. I'm sorry, he started 75 games the season before, playing 29 minutes a game, but they rotated so many things in and out, right, that you saw him actually shoot more. He took 7 3-pointers a game just about and knocked down just about 3 of them. So as he gets more shots, the percentages continue to move in the right direction. That's what you want to see from a guy that you're getting back and an asset that you weren't expecting to get back. So Kevin Huerter, to me, I think that would be a great get for the Chicago Bulls. It doesn't really help you a ton defensively, but at this point, you can tell kind of the direction that the Bulls are looking to go, and they're trying to get this offense going. They're trying to get it going with younger players. The other thing about Kevin Huerter right now, let me get an age. Why am I not seeing his age on basketball? Right, 25 years old for Kevin Huerter right now. I had to go back to Google on that. So let me know how you guys feel about Kevin Huerter, man. I mean, listen, the Bulls and the Kings have been talking deals for I don't know how long, ever since Zach LaVine signed his first deal here. So we'll see what that ends up being. But I think that that's a very interesting situation to monitor and to see how this Bulls team kind of figures out how everything fits together. By the way, real quick, over 200 in the chat. 200. Let's keep this thing moving along, man. I mean, listen, when you're talking about that situation where the Bulls could get back a guy like Kevin Huerter in a possible sign and trade where there was nothing happening, I think that speaks volumes to me, right? That's something that to me, when I watch this team, now I'm kind of seeing how things are pieced together. Now I'm kind of seeing how things start to fit. Now I'm seeing, okay, you got Kobe White here. What is your vision for this team moving forward? And that's something we haven't been able to see. Right? That's something we haven't been able to see from Acme's team for the better part of 2.5 years. We haven't been able to sit there and look at this team and go, hey, I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly the direction they're trying to head. And all we kept saying, even with building the team, it didn't seem like there was a clear direction, right? Because I'm fine with you having Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, everybody, right? You lose Lonzo Ball. My next step would then be, let's go out and let's seriously address, let's not play around with it. Let's seriously address the point guard position, right? Wouldn't that be your next step? Because clearly the point guard position was the position where the Chicago Bulls were struggling the most. That's not what we saw. We saw makeshift signings. We saw freaking who was it? Goran Dragic brought in here. We saw Patrick Beverley brought in on a little stint that actually worked, and then you didn't want to bring him back because you wanted to try some other pieces out there, right? I feel like the Bulls never made a real attempt to make that team work. And so there was no direction with it. You just kept going, well, we'll throw somebody else in there. We'll see if he figures it out. Hey, let's have at it. Let's have at it. Let's see what happens. It just makes no sense to me. Now it feels like with AK actually, is he holding his word? Is he keeping his word on this? Like, if we're being 100% honest, what he said at the end of the season was, we're trying to change this core. We're trying to move pieces out of here, and we're going to reshape how we're building this team out. For the most part, for the first offseason in a while, I don't feel like the front office has lied to us. For the most part, for the first time in a while, I feel like they're actually trying to build something here that is a change, but still trying to move in the right direction for the long term. And I love that. I love that. I love that we finally gotten here, man. It took us a while to get here, just like it took us a while to get to over 300 in a check. 300. Listen, at the end of the day, here's the big thing. If you can find a way to get assets for a piece that you didn't believe was going to be here, that's a win. And in a rough few years for the Chicago Bulls, I would say that we've seen an offseason of what I would call wins. I know a lot of people don't look at the Giddey trade as a win, but you traded a 30-year-old piece for a 21-year-old piece, and finally the point guard you needed. That's a win. Now, is it a win based off of mistakes you made in the past? 100%. Could have traded AC sooner. Could have got more for him. Could have gotten multiple first-round picks for him if you traded him at the trade deadline. Could have traded Zach LaVine sooner. Could have traded, right? Like, should have traded Zach LaVine sooner. Didn't work out. Now you're stuck in this bad situation. Could have traded Vooch sooner. Didn't work out. Now you're stuck in this bad situation. The fact that you're getting some wins out of situations that I believe you shot yourself in the foot in, I'll take them at this point. Now, what does that lead to? That depends on the development we see from the players. None of this means anything if there's not one minimum star on this team. None of this means anything if Kobe White doesn't go from 19 points per game to 25 points per game. It just doesn't. In the NBA, you need stars. In the NBA, you need star talent. That's the only way to win. There is no other proven way. I don't want to hear, right? The Pistons did it 1 year. That is a rare opportunity. And you can argue that at a minimum, they had superstar leadership on that team in Chauncey Billups, who was also a really freaking good player. But let's talk about the history of the NBA stars. You don't talk about, oh man, there was this really nice collection of players and they were really competitive and they won in it. Like you talk about that once every blue moon. People always want to bring the Dallas Mavericks up. The Dallas Mavericks didn't have stars. Shut up. Dirk Nowitzki's one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history. I hate when they're like, well, Dallas won the championship over Miami. They had less stars, but they still had stars. The only way that any of this takes any effect, that works at all, is if you come away with a legitimate star level talent. And I don't know if the Chicago Bulls have that yet. And you're not going to get that via trade. You're not going to but this is putting all the pieces in place to try and help Kobe White become that. This is putting all the pieces in place to try and say, okay, well, if we've got a legitimate point guard and Kobe can focus on being a scoring two guard, but still have some facilitating options, right? If he's still got that, if you've got Patrick Williams now with more opportunity, right? Maybe he can become that elite level role player that people are hoping that he finally becomes, right? If you bring in a guy like Kevin Huerter, you've got your specific shooter. Ayo Dosunmu becomes your Alex Caruso that you just let go. We've got these young guys in here. Like, where is there a star in this bunch? Can Matas Buzelis, he believes that if he was a jump shot away from being the number one overall pick, can he play like he's a number one overall pick? By the way, coming out in the draft, where I believe the number one overall pick is a glorified role player as well. Like I'm not high on Alex Sarr. I think he'll be nice. I think he'll be a solid player, but I don't think that you went out and got the best of the best here. Or not Alex Sarr. Y'all know what's old boy name? I'm blanking on his name right now. Dang, what is his name? He went to Atlanta. Freaking, I can't think of it right now. It is what it is. Doesn't matter. He's a role player as well. That's my point. That's my point. I don't believe that this was a draft that is going to produce phenomenal superstars. Zachary Richard was who I was trying to think of. Shout out to the chat. Dantavius helped me out with that one. Brazil popular. Help me out with that one. But if we're being real on this, right? Like there's hope on Matas. I think Matas is also going to be an upper level role player. I hope that it's more. But what you're doing is you're building a team, you're building a support system around Kobe White to hopefully help him develop into that. None of this matters this offseason if one of these guys don't become a star. And that's why I like the fact that the Bulls could have a possibility of trading away DeMar DeRozan in a sign and trade deal that possibly you probably got to sign him, right? Because sign and trade, no matter what, is a 3-year deal. Sacramento is in California. Is that close enough to home for him, right? But like a sign and trade is minimum 3-year deal for DeMar DeRozan. You're probably talking about somewhere between, I would say probably about a $53 million deal. He wants to be above the mid-level exception. Maybe there's a 3-year deal where you're able to get like, you start off at 15 and you get an escalating contract, or you front load the contract, you get a de-escalating contract one way or the other. Maybe there's a player option in that 3rd year or something like that, but just an opportunity for him to go to a team that is competing, that is going to be competitive, that is going to be able to go out there and be competitive in the Western Conference, that allows him a chance to be in the playoffs and win in the playoffs. He's going out there with Mike Brown. There's a lot of positives for DeMar on that. And so to me, if you have an ability to make that trade, let's get that done. Because bringing somebody back like Kevin Huerter to me is a perfect support piece for what you're trying to build here with this youth movement. He's not going to take a ton of shots. At most in Kevin Huerter's career to this point, I believe his most shots per game has been 8 shots. Let me double check that. Let me make sure I'm not capping with y'all here. Most shots per game. I am capping here. 11 shots per game when he was a starter. 11 shots. He was a highly efficient player, 48% from the field, 40% from 3, 15 points per game. If you want to bring him in the starting lineup and have him be one of those guys, that's fine. I think he's somebody you bring off the bench. You play him about 25 minutes a game. You get 10 to 12 points out of him. He's able to come in and be a legitimate 3-point shooter. Now we're building a team. And I've said this a couple of times. Now you're building a team that makes sense for the head coach that you have. And I said this on the show before, and people kind of had a little bit of backlash on it, right? Like they weren't fans of the thought of Billy Donovan having anything good, right? And listen, like the video if you agree, subscribe to the page. Like the video if you disagree, subscribe to the page. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love and rocking with me this early in the morning, man. 9:30 in the morning on a holiday. Let's go. But here's the conversation we realistically need to have. We bring head coaches in, and we've done this before, and we don't continue to give them the team that works for them. Now, does Billy Donovan have flaws? 110%. I go when you go to the Breeze, go to the searches. The day Billy Donovan was fired, I was the first person that said, do not hire Billy Donovan. He will not help you win a championship. I was the first person. It's probably one of the only videos that said, don't hire Billy Donovan. It is still on the channel to this day. I am not a Billy Donovan fan, mostly because I've seen what you've done with superstars, and it was not enough to get it done. But that is in the Western Conference. You went up against the dynasty, one of the greatest dynasties we've ever seen. Some people argue the greatest dynasty we've ever seen. I would not agree with that. I still think that is the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. But some people would argue that those Golden State Warriors teams are better than the 90s Bulls teams. Okay. But in the Eastern Conference, a conference that we all agree is kind of weak, right? Boston's the dominant force. The Bucks are nobody. We don't know. Nobody knows what the Bucks are. I have a friend group of friends that are in Milwaukee who we're all in a group chat together. It's a bunch of us in Chicago, a bunch of us in Milwaukee. There's a bunch of Bucks fans in there. Nobody knows what the Bucks are doing, right? The Bucks are meh. The Knicks seem like they're moving in the right direction, although I don't know if the Villanova connection is a dominant connection, but they'll be able to run through a wall for Tom Thibodeau. And I would say the Magic are now in that mix of teams that got better. And I guess the Cavs are still there, kind of, but the Cavs are a weird team. But you talk about 5 teams out of the whole conference. 5 teams out of the whole conference. So there's an ability, if you have a star level player for Billy Donovan to work with, for you to win in the East. That's my point of all of this. Because we've seen him do it in the West when he had those superstar level players on his team. He never had a losing record until he got here. He never had a season under 500 until he got here. So that tells me at a minimum, you're this level of coach, but he does need the players. Can we say that Billy Donovan has consistently been given the players? He had the team that was perfect for his scheme for how long? 35 games. 35 games. When Lonzo Ball went down and Zach LaVine was down to injury, that was the end of it. And why do we know that? Yeah, the team had some flaws defensively, but the offense was humming. From the second they hit the court, the offense was humming. So I look at the situation that the Bulls are in now, and I'm like, okay, are you finally once again giving Billy Donovan a team that works for the system that he's trying to run? Because you haven't done that the last 3 years. Unfortunately, because of Vooch kind of getting older throughout this time too, you've wasted most of the time where he fit that system. Now you got to move on from him. Now we hear the reports that the Bulls are trying to move on from Nikola Vucevic. But when you look at the team on the floor, this is a team that fits what Billy Donovan wants to run. How much will that impact the success of this team moving forward? If you add Kevin Huerter to this, my God. But when you're talking about a rim running team, Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Jalen Smith, Patrick Williams can run. Like he actually can get out on the run and go. I know I'm not a fan of him, but I'm not going to besmirch him on the things that he can do. Nikola Vucevic is probably the odd man out in that. I don't know if you move him or not, but Matas Buzelis fits, rim runner. I don't know what the weight is, but at a minimum, we're measuring him at 6'10". By the way, I missed a couple of them. Over 400 in a check. And now over 500 in a check. Appreciate y'all, man. Appreciate y'all rocking with me in this morning, man. Over 200 on both YouTube and on the Twitter side. Appreciate y'all. You got Ayo Dosunmu coming off of your bench. You add Kevin Huerter. He's probably coming off of your bench. You got Torrey Craig still on this team now. He's re-signed coming off of your bench. And we get the news yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this. Adama Sanago has agreed to another 2-way contract with the Chicago Bulls. Now, that does limit how many games he could play at the NBA level, but I do think it's about 65 games before the Bulls have to guarantee that contract. So I think that would be another good guy that you could have as your either backup center or a guy who you could just bring up and down as needed. I'm assuming that Vooch starts the season with the Chicago Bulls, so that's why you get him on a 2-way contract when you end up trading away Vooch, probably at the trade deadline, because there will be teams that are looking for a big that can go out and get you a double-double. He's still 18-11, and some team will go, hey, maybe we shouldn't have this guy shoot so many threes and have him down in the post where he's still very dominant. Cool. You also got Julian Phillips. He wants to run. You've also got Dalen Terry, although I don't know how much tick Dalen's getting, but he wants to run. A team that wants to get out on the run and has legitimate shooters that you can identify is the kind of team that fits what Billy Donovan wants to run. And I think that this is the first time he's going to have that. Let's be real. Let's do an experience. I did this. I want to say last week on the Daily Show, or maybe it was Monday on the Daily Show. outside of Andre Drummond, name me another big on this team that could run. Another center on this team that could run. Because that's very important for what Billy's trying to run. The only other center that's been on this team is Tony Allen. The only other center that's even been a part of this team is Tony Allen. Or I'm sorry, not Tony Allen. Tony Bradley. No, I did not mean to disrespect Tony Allen, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Tony Bradley. So you tell me how that's supposed to work in favor of Billy Donovan. Larry Markkinen was on the team, but that was that first year. They end up moving on from him. That's a front office decision. Billy, they didn't vibe. I don't know. I don't know why. I give you Larry. I think Daniel Gafford was already gone. I want to say Gafford was already gone before Billy got here, but I could be wrong on that. When did D Gaff leave? And they didn't see the vision with Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford left 2020, 2021. Is that first year of Billy? That might be first year of Billy. I might be right about that. But even so, they moved on from those guys. The team moved on from those guys. Thad Young never played under Billy. And so to me, when I look at that, I'm just like, okay, well, where do you want to find answers? Where do you want to find this system? Gafford got traded Billy's first season. And even with that, I wasn't mad at the team that moving on from those pieces built. That's the thing. Larry Markkinen at that point was an injury-prone player who could not stay healthy, could not stay on the court. He was injury-prone when he went to Cleveland as well. He dealt with injury. I mean, like, has Lowry's had one healthy season in the NBA? Let me see what Lowry's at right now. Lowry with the Chicago Bulls, 68 games solid, 52, 50, 51. He played 61 with the Cavs. He's played 66 and 55 with the Utah Jazz. He's still injury prone, guys. He's still missing a good chunk of season. His rookie year, he played 68 games. It was the most he'd ever played. I was fine moving on from a guy like Larry Markkinen at that point, because one, also, like, I don't know if people remember this, but like, he had gotten to a point where it was like, yo, we want to change a role, we want to switch some things up, and he was just pouting on the bench at the end of his Bulls tenure. Looking back on it, is Larry a better player? Heck yeah. Wendell Carter Jr., I will never feel bad about getting rid of. He is cheeks. Wendell is cheeks. He just looks good against the Bulls every time he plays them. I am never concerned about getting rid of a Wendell Carter Jr. Also a guy who is still injury prone, by the way. I don't believe Wendell has played over 70 games in his career yet. I don't believe Wendell has played over 65 games in his career yet. But you moved on from some of those pieces to build the team that fit Billy's system in the first 35 games. And then you never tried to replicate, you never tried to create, I mean, how many of us in here could look at the Bulls and go, they need a point guard. How many people in here have been watching the Bulls over the past 4 years and have just gone, yeah, they need a point guard? The one time you got a point guard who's not even a great point guard, phenomenal defensively in his career, offensively, man, you know what I mean? Like, he's going to give you what he gives you. But the one time you go out and get somebody who legitimately is like, hey, you can play point. And Patrick Beverley, the team looks the best it's ever looked since the first 35 games. It's not a coincidence, guys. It's not a coincidence. And yet that was the thing that wasn't addressed for 4 years. And now you've gotten to the point where you put Kobe White back in that position. He looks like he's made some strides in the right direction. You bring in a guy like Josh Giddey. Now, right? Like, now it seems like you're actually building a team to give Billy Donovan what he needs. And yes, Billy Donovan is the kind of coach that has to have a team that gives him what he needs. He's not the kind of coach that you can go out there and just say, hey, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the pieces are. It doesn't matter what you have on the court. You have to go out there and you're going to coach us to a victory. He's not that coach. He's a game plan coach. He's going to stick to his game plan. He's not going to deviate too much from the game plan. He's not going to move on from the pieces that he has there, right? He's not going to change things up too much, right? Like, these are his guys. The guys you give him, he's going to figure that out. He's going to swap rotations out and all of that. But for the most part, these are his guys. That's who Billy Donovan is. Does that suck? A little bit. But you know that you extended him. You kept him on this team. You want him to coach this team of the future. You want him to develop this team to a point that it gets to being a playoff level championship competing team. Give him the pieces to do that. Don't Fred Hoiberg this guy. Don't Fred Hoiberg this guy. Don't tell him he's getting a team of shooters that's young and more athletic, and then you go out and you get him Dwayne Wade and freaking Rajon Rondo. Oh, but we got you Doug McBuckets. That's where this team falls short to me. That's where this team struggles at the most to me. And I'm tired of seeing it. And I'm glad to see that it seems like they've finally gotten out of their own way. Even by, right, like I said, with the DeMar DeRozan possibility of being a sign and trade, even by basically almost shooting yourself in the foot, but DeMar said, nah, I don't want 40 mil a year. I'm going out and I'm getting more. And the market going, we ain't got more for you, my boy. You should have took that 40. But hey, I want to know how you guys feel in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on the possibility of the Chicago Bulls going out and making a trade with the Sacramento Kings. Do you feel like this is the right situation for the Bulls to bring in somebody who they're interested in, like Kevin Huerter? Can we see a sign and trade get done? I will be talking to you guys in the comments below as well. I hope you guys enjoy your holiday and have a great time and party it up and have as many drinks as you want. Do what you do, man. As always, it's your boy Pat the Designer. Hat the Designer. Hey now. It's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. Y'all